Separately, the US president has been praising the decision to remove Jimmy Kimmel's late night talk show, claiming the move was made because of very bad ratings and a lack of talent. ABC axed the programme after the host criticised Donald Trump and his allies for their response to the assassination of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. It's the latest display of the president's growing power over the American media landscape. Well, for more, we're joined now by Brody, human rights lawyer and former New York Assistant Attorney General. Thanks so much for being with us on the programme this evening, Reid. Firstly, if I can just ask you what your own reaction was to news of this show's axing. Trump, in the last couple of hours, also floating now the idea that broadcast licences could be revoked if US networks are too negative in their coverage of him.
Well, this is just an unprecedented attack on freedom of expression. It's not surprising what happened to Jimmy Kimmel after what happened to CBS late night host Stephen Colbert, and now Donald Trump is talking about going after the remaining late night hosts. I think you have to see this, unfortunately, as part of a broad attack on all dissenting voices in the United States, whether they be in the media, among lawyers, among NGOs, at universities. There's a systematic attempt to use all the levers of government and all the power of government to force people to obey Donald Trump and to silence criticism.
And remind us, what exactly did Jimmy Kimmel actually say? And would those kind of remarks not be protected by the First Amendment?
Well, so basically, Jimmy Kimmel, in the excerpt that is apparently at issue, he said that MAGA, that the Make America Great Again movement, was trying to make sure that people didn't think that the killer was part of MAGA, and that MAGA was trying to utilize and weaponize the killing of Charlie Kirk, which is actually true. I mean, we have seen this really be taken up as a weapon. That anybody who tries to put Charlie Kirk in context. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel had a tweet in which he lamented the killing of Charlie Kirk, in which he talked about violence having no place in society, as have pretty much everybody on the left as well as on the right. Now, there are many people who have pointed out that Charlie Kirk was a racist, was a homophobe. He said that if he got on a plane, he would look to see if it was a black person as a pilot, and then he would get off the plane. I mean, things like that. So people are trying to contextualize this, but this has become a litmus test. And of course, what happened, the sequence of events, is that the head of the Federal Communications Commission, which distributes licenses to television stations, and which has enormous power over television stations, which in the past had been basically non-political, the head of the FCC said that he was appalled by Jimmy Kimmel's remarks. And basically, he said, look, we do it the easy way or we do it the hard way. That day, the same day, Jimmy Kimmel was fired. And so this is just another example of how, in this case, the FCC, but in other cases, different parts of the Department of Justice are being weaponized to go after and to squelch any dissent.
And the axing of this show, Reid, it sparked huge debate in the US. For you, does it represent a new front in Donald Trump's campaign against the media?
You know, it's the most visible because Jimmy Kimmel was very visible, as was Stephen Colbert. I mean, you talked about the First Amendment. Of course, the First Amendment protects speech, and the federal government could not have gone after Jimmy Kimmel for what he said. I mean, Donald Trump this week filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times because he said they were favoring the Democrats. That obviously is going to go nowhere because we do have the First Amendment that protects freedom of speech. But what is happening is much more pernicious and dangerous, which is to use things like in the Jimmy Kimmel case, FCC licensing, to use the corporate pressure. We've seen, for instance, that, I mean, ABC is owned by Disney. CBS, which took Stephen Colbert off the air, is owned by Paramount. I'm sorry. And these people, the Washington Post is owned by Amazon, by Jeff Bezos, who has Amazon. And so basically, the parent companies have huge contracts or huge dealings with the federal government. I mean, let's say the case of Stephen Colbert and CBS is very revelatory. The parent company of CBS needed federal government approval for a multi-billion-dollar merger. And was ready not only to sacrifice Stephen Colbert, but to basically give, I think it was $15 million in response to a frivolous lawsuit brought by Donald Trump. And this is what we're seeing with not just with the media, but I mean, you take what's happening with Harvard University. There's an allegation that Harvard was not cracking down on anti-Semitism. And so what is the remedy? The remedy is to go after their tax-exempt status, to prevent them from getting international students, to prevent them from enrolling foreigners, and basically looking at all the different levers. And many of us knew that the second term of Donald Trump was going to be much more dangerous than the first. He was prepared for this time. He had a program behind him. He was ready to wreak vengeance. What I have to say, many of us are surprised by is the sophistication with which he has looked at every single lever of how he can hurt somebody, how he can use, whether it's your tax-exempt status, whether it's an IRS investigation, whether it's in the case of Harvard cutting off foreign students, whether it's your license, basically to look at every way that he can make people who are opposing him, to silence them.
Okay, Reid, we'll have to leave it there for now. We thank you so much for your time on the programme this evening. We do appreciate it. That is Reid Brody, human rights lawyer and former New York Assistant Attorney General. Well, that is it from us for now. Do stay with us, though, for more world news on France 24.